Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the first episode of ISNET's podcast season 3. Today, we will have a conversation that sits at the intersection of faith, science, and one of the most discussed questions in the Muslim world. When exactly does the crescent appear, and how do we know for certain? Every year, as Hajj approaches, millions of Muslims around the globe wait for that silver of light that marks the beginning of Zilhajj. And yet, despite centuries of tradition and decades of modern astronomy, the question of moon sighting continues to spark debate, divide communities, and challenge scholars. Today, we are privileged to have with us Dr. Shawkat Odeh, one of the world's foremost authorities on Islamic crescent visibility, founder of the International Astronomical Center and creator of the globally recognized Odeh Criteria, a scientific framework used by Muslim communities and Islamic bodies across the world. Dr. Odeh, your work has truly been a gift to this Ummah, and we are deeply honored to have you with us today.
Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. It's my pleasure being with you, and thank you for inviting me for this great episode, which I believe, inshallah, it will be beneficial for the whole ummah, inshallah.
Inshallah. And we are also joined by Mr. Ghulam Mustafa Leghari, a space science expert at SUPARCO, Pakistan's National Space Agency. Mr. Leghari brings a practitioner's eye to this conversation, and I know he has come with genuine curiosity and a few questions of his own that we will get to along the way. Thank you, Mr. Ghulam Mustafa Leghari.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, let us begin. Dr. Odeh, let us start from the very beginning for our listeners. Moon sighting sounds straightforward. You look at the sky, you see the crescent, the month begins. But in reality, it is far more complex. Can you walk us through why crescent visibility is scientifically challenging?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As you said, actually, lunar crescent sighting should be simple, should be straightforward. Let's not forget this, that moon sighting is the requirement to start one of the most important things in our religion, fasting, pilgrim. There are many things which is related to moon sighting. So it's unwise to make such a condition to start these important things in our religion, to make it very difficult, to make it not easy for the people. This is unwise. So definitely there is a problem which we are doing by ourselves. It's not the nature of the moon sighting itself. There are some mistakes that we are doing. So if we look at what's happening in the Muslim countries, actually the reason for this confusion, for these mistakes, it's related to different reasons. There is no single reason, but maybe the most important reason for what's happening is because we have many important countries which they are asking the people to look for the crescent. And after all, there are sites or sightings for that crescent which contradicts the scientific facts. And these countries, they are accepting these claims. And this is the starting point for the whole problem, because we have different countries, we have different knowledge among these countries. There are persons in charge and officials who know that the crescent cannot be seen. On the other hand, there are countries which are asking their people to look for the crescent, and there are persons who claim seeing this crescent and they accept it. So these countries will start, because simply they received the person who claimed seeing the crescent. So for this country, this person is accepted. That country will start the month. On the other hand, there are other countries which know that the crescent cannot be seen on that day. So these countries will not accept the sighting of that country. So this is the starting point, actually. This country will start the month, that country will not start the month. The normal people, they don't know anything, because unfortunately, one of the reasons also is the lack of the knowledge of crescent sighting among the public. They know nothing about what's happening. So they don't understand what's happening. Why did X country started the month and Y country didn't start the month? This is the main reason. The other reason also arises from the method of crescent sighting. There are countries which accept sighting the crescent by telescope. Other countries, they insist on naked eye observation. So definitely this will make also a difference between the countries. In addition to all that, some countries, they insist on a moon sighting from within their local border. So no sighting will be accepted from outside the country. But other countries, they accept that. So all these parameters, these three main reasons, they are working together to create that big problem that we are facing. So I believe basically there is, or it's not what I believe, actually, this is a fact. From scientific point of view, there is no confusion. It's very clear, it's very accurate, but the people who are dealing with these facts, they are the reason for making this whole trouble.
So the crescent will exist astronomically, but whether it can be seen as an entirely different question. Mr. Leghari, I know at SUPARCO you work with observational data regularly. Does this match what you encounter in practice?
Yes, exactly. I think most of the time, if we see from the scientific perspective, that we can, nowadays we can calculate the exact position of the moon in the sky, its altitude, its crescent width, or in other words, its luminosity, and other orbital parameters of the moon. These can be calculated at the millisecond, with a millisecond precision. So as far as the position and the illumination and the height of the moon is concerned, there is no any uncertainty. One thing, when we have we observe from our experience that when we have moon sighting conditions where the moon can be seen with the naked eye easily, so we find that unless or until we have monsoon season, we don't have any problem of sighting. On the other hand, we see that our models, sighting models based on some historical records of moon sighting over the decades, and these records are collected by many observers from all around the world, and our modern prediction models are based on these observations actually. So when the crescent is clear or easily visible with naked eye, we see mostly that there is no problem. But we find a problem when we have crescent at very low altitude and very thin crescent, or we can say that only few percent of luminosity is there, and it is coming on Earth. In that case, what we find that it is not due to the astronomical data that we are unable to see the crescent with the telescope or with the naked eye, but it is due to the local, atmospheric conditions and the weather conditions. And we know that the weather, when we are going to, make some calendar, or we are going to predict it 10 days ago, 10 days earlier, or 1 month earlier, or years earlier, for a moon sighting prediction, we see that it is very hard to, scientifically, it is very hard to incorporate the weather condition at that particular day, because the weather scientifically behave as, very chaotic and non-linear phenomena. So we do not know exactly, for example, in Karachi, after 1 year, what would be the atmospheric and weather conditions near the horizon, because we always see or observe crescent near the horizon. So it is very difficult to predict it. So mostly due to in those cases where the chances are very little and the altitude is very low, although the visibility models predicted that it can be seen when we have very favorable weather conditions. But most of the time we see that due to our dust and haze, and we have in our coastal areas in Pakistan particularly, where we have a longer duration of moon sighting, there we observed a lot of haze and humidity during the summer times. So in those times, we can say that it's a little bit difficult to observe. So there is no issue in the prediction, actually. But the question is, where is the observer? Actually, the observer is standing on the earth, and the light has to pass through from the horizon and to reach to your observatory or the observer eyes. And this is scientifically, this optical path is the longer one. And in addition, when you have haze and dust and high humidity or temperature gradient, then it becomes a little bit difficult for an observer to observe such kind of very thin moon. So it is not the fault of prediction, actually. It is we can say, some non-linear phenomena causing or diminishing the incoming light of the crescent moon. So that is the issue, actually.
Okay, so what we are hearing is that the crescent is not simply a matter of the moon being there. It is about whether human eyes under real sky conditions can actually perceive it. A distinction that is both scientific and deeply practical. Let us now talk about how science has tried to bring certainty to this uncertainty. Dr. Odeh, you developed the Odeh Criteria after analyzing hundreds of crescent sighting observations from around the world. What were the key variables you identified? Things like the moon's age, elongation, and how do they interact to determine whether a crescent can actually be seen by the naked eye?
Well, actually, what we usually do to know whether a crescent can be seen or not, we start by what we call them the three main parameters, which is the sunset time, moonset time, and conjunction time. Conjunction, to make it easy, conjunction means new moon. It's the moment where the month starts by the waning phase. We don't have a crescent. So there is a big difference between new moon and the crescent moon. Actually, we have noticed that there is a confusion between the people. They think that the conjunction is the moment where the crescent, where the moon is a crescent. This is incorrect. Actually, conjunction is the wane phase. It's opposite to the full moon. There is no brightness, there is no illumination on the disk of the moon. The illumination is zero. So this is the conjunction. The crescent is a phase after this waning phase. As we have the first quarter, we have full moon, we have a crescent, we have also waning phase. So conjunction is the 0 point, is the waning phase. Nothing is illuminated on the moon disk. So basically we calculate these three parameters: moonset, sunset, and conjunction. So two conditions must met in order to start thinking about crescent visibility. The first condition, the moon must set after the sunset, because we will look for the crescent after the sunset. So the moon must be there in the sky after the sunset. So if by calculations we find that the moon will set before the sun, so we don't continue, and we simply say there is no need for moon sighting, because simply the moon will set before the sun. So this is condition number one. Condition number two, the conjunction moment itself, it should happen also before sunset, because we will look for the crescent after sunset, and we want to see the crescent. So if the waning phase itself didn't happen before sunset, there is no point to go out and to look for the crescent. By the way, these two conditions might not be important for you in Pakistan, because usually you do not suffer from these two conditions. But in other countries, especially in our region, we do suffer from these two conditions, because sometimes the moon sets before the sun. Nevertheless, we find official announcements from the countries asking the people to go out and to look for the crescent, while we know that there is no moon in the sky after sunset. You don't have this in Pakistan. I have been following you for more than maybe 25 years. You're doing good in moon sighting. You don't have this problem, but we have it in our countries. So the worst thing happening, even though the moon will set before the sun, we have official announcements from the government to look for the people to go out and look for the crescent. Claims in these conditions. Luckily, starting from 2008, we no longer have these cases in our major countries, Arabic countries like Saudi, Egypt. We no longer have these problems. So things started to be better starting from 2008. However, there are some countries, especially in Africa, some of them are your neighbors, they accept sighting of the crescent while the moon is not in the sky. So, okay, this is phase number one. I have, by calculation, to make sure that the moon will set after the sun, I have to make sure that conjunction will happen before the sunset. Are these two conditions enough? The answer is no. So this is the reason why we have what we call them crescent criteria. Not every moon sets after the sun can be seen. There are some conditions which should be fulfilled in order to say that this crescent have enough light so that I can see it, whether by telescope or not naked eye. That's another point. So what are these two conditions, or what are the conditions? We found out by research, by papers, the published papers, we found out that one parameter is not enough to give an accurate judgment for the crescent visibility. So I cannot say if the age of the moon is more than 12 hours, then it can be seen. This is not enough. I cannot say if the moon will stay in the sky for about 30 minutes after sunset, the crescent will be seen. This is not enough. Even the angular separation between the moon and the sun in the sky, what we call it elongation, this is simply elongation as the angular separation between the moon and the sun. This is the most important one, by the way. Even this single parameter is not enough to say. Sometimes the moon has an elongation of 10 degrees from the sun. Nevertheless, it cannot be seen. In other occasions, the elongation can be, let's say, 8 degrees, and it can be seen. So the elongation alone is not enough. So we found out that we have to have another second parameter, and these two parameters will work together. We found out that elongation between moon and sun and the altitude of the moon above the horizon, these two parameters, we found them very accurate to give us good predictions for the crescent visibility. So these are the two parameters where the criteria are based. For my criteria, Odeh criteria, it's based on elongation, but to be more accurate, actually, I don't rely exactly on elongation. My first parameter is the crescent width. How wide is the crescent? By the way, it's a linear correlation. There is a linear correlation between elongation and width. But there is another small parameter which plays a role, which is the distance between the moon and the earth. We know that the distance between moon and earth is not constant. Sometimes the moon is at perigee, it's near the earth. So the crescent moon will be larger. Sometimes it's at apogee, it will be far from earth. So for the same elongation, sometimes the moon is near, so it's big, sometimes it's far, so it's wide. So to be more accurate, I don't use elongation, I directly use the width of the crescent. So this is the first parameter. The second parameter is the altitude of the moon above the horizon at sunset. I used these two parameters. How I could reach my criteria? Simply, as you said, we have a large database of real observations for the crescent for more than 150 years. There are more than 730 observations. So simply we look into these two parameters for all this backlog and this archive. We look at that observation on that day. That observer, did he see the crescent or he couldn't see the crescent? If it was positive and he was able to see the crescent, we look at the width and the altitude. So after combining all this database, we could reach an accurate judgment that if the elongation is that much and the altitude is that much, based on the history and our archive, then that crescent can be seen. Similarly, that small crescent cannot be seen. So it's simply an archive of hundreds of observations. We studied them and we compared our two parameters for what really happened. Based on that, we can in the future predict whether the crescent can be seen or not, because we already have hundreds of records which can let us predict accurately in the future for the crescent whether it will be seen or not.
Thank you, Dr. Odeh.
Yes.
Mr. Leghari.
Yes, thank you very much. I think firstly, I really appreciate the work of Mr. Mohammad Odeh, and his paper is really remarkable, and one of the highly cited paper. I have gone through it many times. We are also using the Odeh criteria in SUPARCO as well. But by taking the advantage of his presence here, so I want to ask, especially, this is a little bit scientific, that, there are two famous models. One is Yallop and Odeh models. And at the boundary of, we have A, B, C, and D region in Odeh model. But at the boundary of region C, we have seen that you have set the minimum elongation criteria. Let's imagine we have moon sitting at the perigee distance, and we are assuming that can we see that crescent sitting at perigee at very minimum elongation that you reported, and it is around 6.4 degree. And the classical Dungeon limit is around 7 degree, and the Yallop also add 1 more degree as a horizontal parallax of the moon. So there are different modern models, but they have a different cutoff for the Dungeon limit. So how do you see, firstly, how do you see that affects the real prediction? However, you have reported in your paper that there is a one observation, and that elongation you reported is around 6.4. But do you have any other observation on on the ICOP website or database that is close to that 6.4 degree? Secondly, I want to ask, how do you compare your model with the Yallop model and the Schaefer model? Thank you.
Well, you asked several important questions. It's not one question. There are particularly 3 questions. So let me start by the elongation question. Actually, I do not base my criteria on the elongation. I think you are referring, I cannot exactly remember because my paper was written 20 years ago. I remember it was published in 2005. So we are talking about something I wrote 21 years ago. So
yes,
I must not remember every word. But I think you are referring to a paragraph in which I mentioned the world record observation. So I mentioned that the shortest elongation in our database was 6.4. Nevertheless, the criteria itself, it's not based on that elongation. So definitely in other months, it might predict positive crescent visibility while the elongation is less than 6.4. So neither myself nor Yallop are building our criteria on the elongation itself. It's just an information. I mentioned that in our database, the minimum elongation was so and so, the minimum lag time, which is difference between moonset and sunset, was so and so, the shortest age was so and so, but this does not mean the crescent cannot be seen below these values, because simply the criteria is not built on these factors directly. As I said earlier, it's a combination between the width of the crescent, which we can consider it elongation somehow, but it's corrected for the lunar distance, and the altitude of the moon. So this is the answer for the first question. About Dungeon limit, actually what Dungeon mentioned in 1930s, about 100 years ago, is a conclusion that he reached on that time based on the observations he had at that time. So after Dungeon, we have records for more than 100 years. So definitely Dungeon limit is no longer valid, by the way. Still, I can see that many astronomers are giving more important to that parameter than it really deserves. It's just a conclusion as a researcher reached more than 100 years ago based on observations which were available for him at that time. But now we have hundreds of observations after him, from which we can conclude that the limit, which we call it now Dungeon, can go well below the 7 degrees. So we have many observations for 6.4, between 6.4. And we, by the way, after I released my criteria and based on the observations which we have after 2005, let's not forget that my criteria was released in 2005, and now we are in 2026. So we have 21 years of additional observations. So if you will ask me, did I find during this 21 years observations which broke all the criteria? The answer is yes, by the way. I think as a total, I don't know the exact number, but I think we have maybe 10 observations during this 21 years which broke all the criteria. But all these observations were at the border of all the criteria, which is already expected. We all know that the border of any criteria is not very sharp. We know that there is some uncertainty where it can shift a little bit to the east, a little bit to the west, based on the atmospheric conditions, which you deeply explained before a while. So because of this, we already know when we publish our criteria, we already know the borders are not sharp, and there are some tolerance, and all these 21 observations, all these observations, which I estimate them by maybe 10 observations, were within this tolerance. They were not far observations to the extent that I say, okay, let me publish another paper with modified all the criteria. I don't believe it deserves that. All of them, they were at the border. So this is answering about the Dungeon limit. So if we go, oh, by the way, the Dungeon limit, there was a doubt for Dungeon himself in his paper. His doubt was, he wrote this in his paper in the 1930s. He said, my limit, Dungeon's limit, is because the atmosphere does not allow the light of the moon to reach us on Earth, on the ground, because of the atmosphere. The atmosphere, because of the turbulence, the scattering of the light, we will no longer receive anything if the elongation is less than 7. But we know now this is totally incorrect, because by using observations for the lunar by astronomy, by astroimaging, either by CCD or CMOS, we know that we can go well below Dungeon limit. We know that we have pictures and photos for the moon, for the lunar, for the crescent, to be specific, for the crescent, when the elongation was 3.5. So we know now that expectation, that anticipation in 1930 that the atmosphere will ruin the crescent when it is below 7. It's not correct. We have now photos for the crescent when it's about 3.5. Lastly, your last third question, you asked me about the difference between Yallop, Odeh, the borders. Basically, and I have said this many times, I don't see a real difference between the concept and the origin of Odeh and Yallop criteria. Odeh criteria is a recent one, which was, by the way, based on the same concept of Yallop. Even the equation itself, I used the same equation because I believe the equation Yallop reached in his paper is good, is accurate. I can use it. The only difference between us is I was able to get much more extra observations that he couldn't obtain, because Yallop, he published his paper in 1997. So he based his criteria based on the observations which were available for him in 1996. When I published my paper in 2005. So there is a difference of 8 years between us. And during this 8 years, I was able to obtain many important observations for the crescent, especially by telescope. And if you clearly examine the two criteria, you will not find a real difference in predicting the visibility by naked eye, but you will find a huge difference in predicting the visibility by telescope. Because we already, even in 1990s and before that, we already have a good and large database for observing the crescent by naked eye. So nothing new will happen after 1995. We already have hundreds of observations by naked eye. But we didn't have at that time enough observation by telescope, because the telescope was not available for all the observers in that time. At that time in 1995, 1990, it was not an easy thing to get a telescope by the ordinary person. They were expensive, they were difficult to obtain, difficult to buy. So at that time, we don't have many observers for the crescent by telescope. Consequently, we don't have enough database for observing the crescent by telescope. But after that, especially in 2000s, no, the situation is different. At that time, we had observers, many observers for the crescent by the telescope. So we started to get new observations which were not available at that time. If my database was available to Yallop criteria would have been exactly like Odeh criteria. The only difference between us is because I was able to get new observations which were not available for Yallop. So I don't say there's a real difference between us. We use the same concept. Everything is almost the same. The only difference is we got new observations which were not available, and this gave us accurate prediction for telescopic observation. As I said, for naked eye observation, everything was clear well before that. Even when I look into IAC criteria, which is only for naked eye observation, I can say it's somehow accurate. Although Yallop and South African criteria, they are more accurate than IAC. And lastly, my criteria, which was released in 2005. So I hope I answered the 3 questions.
Yes, thank you for clearing, because still I wonder why people are using still a Yallop model, especially in UK, as we do not have so many observations. I think the Yallop observations he reported in his paper is around 295, and you reported more than 737 observation in your report.
Exactly.
So, but both of the criteria, are based on, 2 parameters, right? Arc of vision and the crescent width, actually. So
Yes,
our whole visibility, prediction depends on these 2 parameters. How do you see, if we try to, include the algorithm of, meteorology and the human eye physiology proposed by Schaefer. So can we, include these parameters in our, prediction models to, predict it much better especially when we have, crystal width is around 0.1 arc second, and we at altitude is around 5 degree or less than 5 degree. So in these, scenarios, can we incorporate Schaefer model using his idea behind, human eye physiology and meteorology parameters?
Yes, actually, a great question. I have been dreaming to build the criteria based on what you have said. As you know, usually we say that we have two kind of criteria. It's not one type of criteria. The first one is based on actual observations, which they call it empirical method. The empirical method is to study previous observations and to base your criteria on these archival observations. They call it empirical method. And all the criteria which we have mentioned so far, they are from this type of method, empirical. Yes. Whether it's Yallop, Odeh, IAC, South Africa, all are empirical. On the other hand, we have sometimes they call it theoretical method, which follows what you exactly said. We will not rely on previous observations. Simply, we will do calculations. I will calculate the brightness of the crescent, and I will calculate the brightness of the sky behind. Then I will find the ratio between the brightness of the crescent to the brightness of the sky, because actually the challenging parameter in sighting the crescent is not the brightness of the moon, because the crescent, because the crescent is always bright. The crescent is always bright. Whatever happens, it is always bright. Mm-hmm. But the difficulty is because this bright crescent, the background of that bright crescent is the sky, which is also very bright. So the real problem in a crescent sighting is the contrast. The contrast is the ratio between the brightness of that bright crescent to the brightness of that bright sky. This is a ratio. The question is our eye able to see that crescent at that ratio? So number one, I have to calculate the brightness of the moon. Number two, I have to calculate the brightness of the sky. Number three, I have to calculate the limits of my eye. Then I can definitely reach a rigid conclusion whether this crescent can be seen or not based on very accurate calculations. Okay, the wordings I said, they are great. Anyone will hear what I have said, he will say, oh, perfect, let's go ahead. But practically what I have said, it's extremely difficult to reach. Actually, I have contacted Schaefer many times. I know Schaefer for more than 20 years. And maybe 5 years ago, I contacted him because I wanted to start. By the way, myself, I started doing this maybe 15 years ago. I started to develop my own algorithm, and I started calculating the brightness of the sky, the brightness of the crescent, the limits of my vision. And as you said, if you are using a binocular or a telescope, then this is not your naked eye. So you have to correct for this. So we have to have some equations which will correct the limit of my eye, because when I use a binocular, when I use a telescope, the limits of my eye is increased. So I have to have some accurate equation which will really tell me what's happening to my eye when I use this telescope of diameter of 50 millimeter and magnification of 10x times. I must feed this to the equation. So it will tell me, okay, you are using a telescope. Wow, it's 10x. The magnification is 10x. The diameter of the telescope is 20 centimeter. So your vision is increased by so and so. This is not easy to reach. Your age. I'm saying the parameters, because all of them, by the way, are mentioned in Schaefer's paper. Schaefer's papers, because he has many papers, and some of them in paper A and the other are mentioned in paper B. So your age, the diameter of your pupil, which receives the light, is different. As you get older, it gets smaller. So you have to correct this in the equation. The most difficult one is the atmosphere. You have to correct for the clarity of the atmosphere, how the atmosphere is clear, the dust, the humidity, light pollution, the pollution, the atmospheric pollution will increase the brightness of the sky. When the sky is very clear, we don't see white sky. We see very pure, dark blue sky. But if we have dust, it's no longer blue and dark. It's white and very bright. So dust is increasing the brightness of the sky. On the other hand, the dust is reducing the brightness of the crescent. This is why we hate the dust. When the dust comes, when the atmosphere is not clear, two things are happening. The brightness of the background is increasing, and the brightness of my object is decreasing. So do we have, this is the answer for your question, do you have accurate equations which can model all what I have said?
No,
I tried.
not exactly.
I tried, but as you said, the answer, I think the answer is no. It's great to reach such mathematical criteria, but do we have the enough knowledge? I think, I'm saying, I repeated it many times, I think no, we didn't reach this level. So we need to work more in this field. If we are able to reach a mathematical criteria, I would consider this a great achievement. So by the way, we can work together. You have great experts and we have many observations. So we can work together to reach that one, by the way. It's one of the great benefits of this podcast.
Yes, we can give it a try, at least. To, what in my mind that, okay, not precisely, but by taking, the averages of especially the atmospheric conditions of different locations. But it's a very tedious task. It's a huge task. You see.
By the way, if you go back to Schaefer's paper himself, who's maybe the most recent one who investigated in a great details in this matter. He's maybe the most famous one in this field. Even himself, if you go back to his paper in which he spoke about this type of criteria, and at the end, he listed many observations and he tested his criteria against these observations. I think the success percentage, I cannot remember the figure, but I remember it was not a great figure. I think it was 60%, 70%, and something like that.
Yes,
something like that.
Around less than 60%. Yes.
Yeah, I think something like that.
It was around less than.
Yeah. So what I say, it's not a great criteria, which is the success percentage is about 60%. While, by the way, the other type of a criteria, the normal type of a criteria, the success rate is much higher than this. We assume that the success rate of the mathematical criteria will be more than the experimental criteria, but what we find now, based on our knowledge now, is giving us the opposite expectation. This is why I think we can work together to reach this criteria, but as you said, it's a tedious work. It's not something simple to do. It needs good work. But maybe AI can assist us somehow in this field now.
Yeah, I always say that moon is there. It is reality, but it is actually the weather. And we have, in SUPARCO, some historical records where we find that during monsoon season, even we couldn't find Crescent, which was easily visible with naked eye. So yes, this happened.
By the way, did you see the Crescent yesterday?
Yes, we observed yesterday, and we have some reportings. I think in the early just right after sunset, some people observed it.
So you were able to see it by naked eye also.
Yeah.
By the way, I know this. Yes, but I asked you because I wanted. Yeah,
it was at the edge of naked eye, actually.
Yeah. Why I'm asking you this
on the visibility
question?
map.
Yeah, why I'm
Yes.
asking you this question? We know that when you go to the west, the crescent will get easier to be seen. So we in UAE, we are to the west of you in Pakistan. Yesterday, you were
Yes.
able to see the crescent by naked eye, right? Just
Yes.
imagine that
Exactly.
we in
Yes.
UAE, who were to the west of you, and although we were using the astro imaging technology, so we know exactly where the
Mhm.
crescent, and we were able to see the crescent on our screen. When we tried to see it not by naked eye, when we tried to see it by binocular, because we had very bad atmospheric conditions yesterday, we couldn't see the crescent yesterday by binocular. We couldn't see the crescent definitely by naked eye from our observatory. Even by telescope, it was challenging. Even by telescope. Imagine, by the way, we were using the same telescope for both, for astro imaging and for direct visual, because we have a flip mirror. So I can, within 1 second,
Okay.
shift between astro imaging and direct observation. So we were seeing the crescent very clearly on the screen of the computer, very clearly. When we switch it visually and we put our eye, we were many observers. Not all of us were able to see the crescent by telescope. On the same day in Pakistan,
Yes.
where the conditions were a little bit in UAE, you
Good.
could see it,
Yeah.
we couldn't see it. This proves that the atmospheric condition is a great concern that we really need to worry about. We have to do the calculations very accurately. However, I don't want the audience who are watching us and listening to us now have a feeling that astronomical predictions are not accurate. No at all. It's the opposite. What we are saying now, the Crescent criteria, they predict the crescent visibility, and they will tell you, look, if the sky is clear, you will see the crescent. What we are talking about now is, by the way, totally different thing. So I don't want a misunderstanding to happen, to think that what we are saying, the crescent visibility criteria are not accurate. No, they are accurate. But what we have been discussing now is that if there are some dust in the atmosphere, if the atmospheric conditions are not clear, okay, we know in advance that if the atmospheric conditions are not clear, then we know that even though the crescent criteria predicts the crescent visibility, but we know that these crescent visibility criteria were based on normal atmospheric conditions. What about
Yes.
bad atmospheric conditions? So in advance, we know that most probably we will not see the crescent. So what we have been discussing now is, can we implement this in the criteria itself, where I can tell the criteria, look, criteria, the atmospheric condition today is very bad. Now show me the curves. So it will give me curves. Then I will tell the criteria, look, criteria, the atmospheric conditions now today is normal. What is the, show me the curves. Local criteria, the atmospheric conditions is superb. Show me the criteria. What's happening now? We don't have this option. We don't have an option to tell the criteria, hey, criteria, the atmospheric
Exactly.
conditions superb is normal. So it's only one curve. And by the way, we know that the beginnings of the curves is the superb atmospheric conditions. We know that, by the way. We have rough estimate. We know that if you are at the beginning of the curve, so you must be under superb atmospheric conditions in order to see the crescent, because all the observers who were at the same conditions of the edge or the border of the curve now were able to see the crescent when they had superb atmospheric conditions. If you go a little bit inside the curve, a little bit, we know that you should have normal atmospheric conditions. If you are under very, very deep in the curve zone, we know that, okay, it's okay. Even if you will have bad atmospheric conditions, you will be able to see the crescent. So it's not a matter that we are lost now. No, even now, we can tell in advance whether you need superb atmospheric conditions if you are at the beginning of the curve, or you need normal if you are a little bit inside the curve, or it's okay if it's very bad conditions if you are inside the curve. But what we have been discussing now, we don't want to give judgment based on just looking at the curve, and by experience I will tell, okay, I know you are at the border at the beginning of the curve, so you must have, and so no. what we are discussing now, we need something mathematically done. I will enter a figure. I will tell him the atmospheric condition is 0.2. This is called AOD, the aerosol optical depth. It's a value that is measured by devices which tell us how clarity is the atmosphere. If it's 0.1, it's superb. If it's 0.2, it's normal. 0.3, hazy. 0.4, bad. These are measurements which we get by small device, handheld device. We point it at the sun, so it will tell me, look, today the atmospheric clarity, which is AOD, it's 0.1, it's 0.2, it's 0.3, it's 0.4. 0.4 is very bad, by the way. It means the sky is full of dust. It's very bad. 0.5 is terrible. By the way, yesterday in our observatory, it was 0.55. So it was terrible yesterday. Yeah. Yeah. At the same time in Iraq, there was another observatory who could easily see the crescent yesterday. The value of the AOD is 1.15.
No.
So,
And he reported that.
yeah, so just imagine now.
I have seen it.
Yeah, just imagine now by very small handheld device, you point it at the sun, you will directly get very accurate measurement for your atmospheric conditions and the clarity. What we have been discussing now, okay, let's put this number inside the criteria. So it will tell me very accurately whether from my location under these atmospheric conditions, without having me to be experienced and I have experience from previous observations. No, I don't want my previous experience. No, I just want to put a number and it will tell me seen, not seen. This is what we have been discussing, just in case we don't have any misunderstanding for who's listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Odeh and Mr. Leghari, for this interesting conversation. Now, let's move, if I may say, to rather more sensitive part of this conversation, that there are Islamic jurists who argue that this astronomical calculation, however precise, cannot replace the act of physical sighting. They say that calculation alone cannot replace actual sighting, citing the hadith that fast when you see it. So from a scientific standpoint, how do you respond to that? And do you believe science and sighting is in conflict, or can they coexist? Yes, Dr. Odeh.
Well, actually, if we prepare a calendar in advance based on the criteria which we have been discussing and raising during this whole podcast, so we will have a calendar which will tell me in advance that even if you go out and you observe the crescent, your results will be identical to what I have predicted before. So to be honest, really, I don't really care much about this argument because, okay, it's a valid one. Don't forget that this is not a scientific argument. It's Shara'i argument. Scholars of Islam should discuss, the fuqaha should discuss this, not myself. But I can easily say, we did reach a high level of accuracy in predicting the crescent visibility. So we know in advance that if you as a scholar, you insist on actual moon sighting, okay, I don't mind. Let's go together. By the way, let's not forget that we, in the International Astronomical Center, we have founded the Islamic Crescent Observation Project, not calculation project. We established the Islamic Crescent Observation Project in 1998. So we have been observing the crescent for more than 27 years. And the results of all these observations are found in our website. Anyone who visits our website, astronomycenter.net, he will find the results of all the lunar month since 1998 to this date. So we are really interested in crescent sighting. We love the crescent sighting. We do the crescent sighting. But the question is, should we rely on the calculations or the moon sighting? What I'm saying, I don't care, because I know in advance that if you will follow an accurate prediction or accurate criteria, and you say that I will start Dhul Hijjah on Monday, 18th of May, because I have used the criteria which told me that on 17th of May, Sunday, 17th of May, when I will go out, I will be able to see the crescent. So in advance, I have prepared the calendar based on moon sighting, which predicted the beginnings of the month. And practically, when you will go out, your results will be similar to my prediction. So I don't have a real problem. So what I'm saying, okay, we can go out, we can observe, but I will tell you in advance, both will be similar. The only difference or the only exception, when it will be cloudy. And this is, by the way, again, fiqh issue. They should discuss it, not us. If it's cloudy and I know that the crescent can be seen, will you start the month or not? To be honest, I don't care. I'm astronomer. This is fiqh issue. They should decide. I know some scholars, they will say, no, you can start because we know in advance that the crescent can be seen. And the hadith said, فَقْدُرُوا لَهُ. So from Shari'i point of view, I already have hadith which told me I can predict for it. So I will use my prediction. However, I know that there is another hadith which said that complete the month 30 days. Okay, I have two hadiths. It's up to you to choose whether to complete 30 days or to use our prediction. But what I can tell you, if you will use our prediction, whether you will go out or you will not go out, your results of observation will be identical to my calculations. But what's happening now, the reason of the problem is not because of this. Simply, as I started my talk, the whole confusion happening, the root cause of our problem is that some countries, which is, by the way, none of them is Pakistan. I know Pakistan is doing well in crescent sighting. It's other big Muslim countries. They ask their people to go out to look for the crescent. Then they come back and they claim seeing the crescent when all the crescent criteria confirm that the crescent cannot be seen. This makes the trouble. So they will accept their claim. They will start the month, but other countries will say, no. I will not start the month. I know your sighting is not correct. I will not accept your sighting. I did my sighting. I didn't see the crescent. This is the real problem, actually.
Thank you, Dr. Odeh, for explaining it so aptly. Mr. Leghari, do you have any remarks on it further?
Yes, I think as far as the only calculations are concerned, and we also developed many calendars in the past, and now we have new calendar, and it is also based on, totally based on the calculations. The decision, there are some countries, some Muslim countries like Turkey and Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore, Brunei, they have very famous calendar there. So I'm not sure about Indonesia and Malaysia, but I'm pretty sure about Turkey. They only follow their calculated calendar, and it has some minimum. They have set some minimum criteria to sight the moon, and on the basis of that criteria, I don't see any error. For example, we cannot, if Turkey is announcing, first of any month, you cannot have a crescent condition, same condition on the 28th of any month. Conditions will always be, fulfilled only on 29th of the month or 30th of the month. So that's the one thing. In Pakistan, we see that we have, prediction and validation system. We have a legislative body, that is Royat Hilal Committee of Pakistan, and in that body we see the mixture of religious scholars and other people from the scientific institutions. And there are, 3 scientific institutions are permanent member of Central Royat Hilal Committee. One of them is SUPARCO also. And we provide them, predicted data in advance whenever they have, sitting on the 29th of every month. So what we observe from, their recent, we are observing closely, most of their decisions are perfectly aligned with our predictions. Until or unless we have a bad weather or we have, some kind of moon conditions very near to the horizon, and near to the horizon again, is on the above sky, in the zenith, you have clear weather condition, but near the horizon, we have already discussed what kind of conditions we faced. In that scenario, our prediction somehow not failed, but failed due to the atmospheric conditions. So, but also there's another advantage we have in this Roy committee, that any testimony, the validation of that testimony is based on our provided data. If any testimony or claim goes against the data, they don't simply accept it. So here we, go hand in hand together with no problem. And if we say, okay, there is a moon and it is easily visible with naked eye, and any testimony comes and supports the data, they welcome it and they simply accept it. So here, I think we are in very comfort zone, and we are going good as far as this moon sighting issue is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Leghari, for the explanation. And on that note, let us look at what the future holds, because the tools available to us today would have seemed extraordinary even 20 years ago. Dr. Odeh, we live in an age of satellite imaging, AI-based atmospheric modeling, and real-time global sensors network. So how are these new technologies transforming the Crescent visibility prediction, and are we closer than ever to a unified, reliable global answer?
Well, actually, this is a little bit sensitive technology because not many officials accept it. We are talking about imaging the crescent by astronomical cameras. So we know that to start the month, either we look for the crescent by our naked eye, we go out and we search for the crescent and that's it. We can, or we can have binoculars or telescopes. Both are the same, binoculars or telescopes in the same. I can use my own binocular or my own telescope and I look for the crescent. So this is the second method. Let's not forget that not all countries accept this second method. There are some countries which insists on naked eye observations. When I was in Pakistan a few months ago and I met the official committee, I asked them, do you accept optical aid observations in Pakistan? They had some discussion in their own language, so I couldn't understand what they were talking, but at the end they gave me conclusion that yes, we accept optical aid observations for crescent sighting, so it's okay. Because I had a rumor that Pakistan, they do not accept, but the official answer I got that you accept optical observation. But this is not the case in other countries. I know other Muslim countries, they do not accept optical aid observations and they insist on naked eye observations. Okay, just imagine within this situation, now I'm talking about third type of observation where we use astronomical camera. We attach this camera to the telescope. This camera takes many images for the crescent, sometimes up to 100, sometimes up to 10,000 images. It depends. Sometimes only one single image is enough. Sometimes no, I have to take many images, sometimes 20, sometimes 40, 100, 200, 1,000, 5,000. It depends. But the idea is, or the concept is, I'm using a camera which is taking many frames, then I'm feeding these frames to a dedicated software. So I have camera, telescope, software, and this software is stacking these frames or combining, let's say. The scientific term is stacking, but to make it easy, it means combining. I have 100 images, I'm putting them on the top of each other so that I will have one image only. In addition, the software is a little bit enhancing the contrast. Then after all that, I have the image. I have to be accurate in my description. I'm not saying that it's not a real true crescent. No, I'm against saying this statement. No, even though I'm using a camera, telescope, dedicated software, but we shouldn't look into it as I am creating the crescent. No, it is a full crescent. And combining the images, unlike what some people think, combining the images meaning, or the photos, meaning that I'm taking parts of the crescent from each frame and then I'm creating. No, no, no. The full crescent is there on each frame. But because of the noise in the image, I cannot see it clearly. So when I combine them, all what's happening scientifically, simply I'm decreasing the noise around the crescent, so it will appear clearly. That's it. So I don't want to make it a horror story. No, it's not like I'm forming, I'm creating, I'm drawing. No. No, it's not like this. It's the real image of the crescent. I'm taking the real image. I'm just enhancing it a little bit, so I would see the crescent. This is on one hand. On the other hand, yes, it's not very direct sighting of the crescent. It's not only I'm using a telescope. I'm using camera with many frames and software and a computer. So I'm not with and I'm not against. I'm simply explaining the technology. I'm simply saying how it's working. Then the final decision again is for the scholars. It's not for me. I shouldn't be asked as astronomers, you Muhammad, do you believe that such kind of observation, is it accepted from Islamic point of view or no? No, it's not me who should answer this question. This question should be answered by scholars, by fuqaha. But they must understand this technology before they give fatwa. Because I know some prominent councils, Islamic councils, who had a meeting and they discussed this technology and they reached out a fatwa, but I'm against that fatwa because simply they didn't understand the technology before they gave that fatwa. The council or the scholar who will give the fatwa, he must understand what's really happening, then he will give a fatwa. So basically, yes, nowadays, we have this high-end technology, which, by the way, I didn't mention it, but you mentioned that there is AI also, which can, in a magic way, it can detect the faint crescent, and it will force the telescope to keep tracking that crescent, and it will force the camera to keep taking images for that specific point in the image of the crescent. All this is being done by AI, by the way. It was not available 2 years ago. The technology started, by the way, the astro imaging and imaging the crescent by camera. This started in 2007, I think in 2007. But this AI technology, which made it much easier by using some AI technologies, just started 2 years ago. It made crescent visibility by this technology much easier than before. So your question is, shouldn't we make use of this technology? Myself, I cannot answer. I can simply say the technology. I can simply say we have been using it since 2007 till now, and we have been criticized many times by many persons saying that this technology is not accepted from Islamic point of view. So simply I answer, we are not scholars, we are not fiqh council, we are astronomers. We will observe the crescent by whatever means is available. We will even use the calculations also. I'm astronomer. I will do calculations. I will observe the crescent by naked eye. I will observe the crescent by telescope. I will observe the crescent by camera. Then I will publish all that. Then you take from us whatever suits your opinion. Don't force me on your opinion. Because as this is your opinion, there are many others who do not agree with you and they have their own opinion. So it's not my task to adopt a certain opinion and to force all my work to go in that direction. No. We do calculation, we observe by naked eye, we observe by telescope, we observe by camera, we publish all that on our website. Then it's you who will decide which one suits you and you take from us. So yes, the AI has reached to a great level, which I cannot even describe. You have to see it by yourself to just imagine what's happening. So should we make use of this or no? I don't know. Scholars should answer this question.
Rightly
Yeah,
said, sir. Yeah.
I want to add to this, all of, from scientific perspective, all of our knowledge right now about the universe, about the stars and galaxies, it's all the observatories. We have only two sources. One is, telescope, and another is CCD camera. So, yeah, with it, I mean, if we have a classical era, and we see that in classical era we use naked eye behind our telescopes and noted down the positions and other things, but with the invent of this CCD camera, which actually is taking something from the heaven which is real and which exists, giving us a lot of deep information about stars. And even right now we have detected more than 6,000 exoplanets. All of this could happen with the invent of more sensitive CCDs imaging. So as far as the CCD imaging is concerned, scientifically, it is the image of reflection of reality over, existing above us. So, but in case of, moon sighting, we have, some point of views from our ulama that the CCD, okay, maybe again, I don't know whether it is the issue of understanding or not understanding, but we, as Dr. Odeh mentioned, that yesterday he was, trying to see the crescent with the naked eye and the telescope, naked eye behind the telescope, it was not visible, but with the CCD, it was visible. So we have telescope but no CCD, and we have a telescope with CCD. You can see the difference that the technology is so much. Even nowadays, 2 years back, some company is making AI portable telescopes, and they have AI programmed. We call it AI supported telescope, and that AI supported telescopes are far more efficient when we say that, when we have really thin crescent and we want to observe it at very low altitude and we have some favorable weather conditions. So, yeah, I think in Pakistan we have validation and prediction method to make it more strong. We need to work on more on validation system. When we have conditions like the crescent can only be seen with the telescope, we don't have enough observatories, and we don't have enough observers around the across the country. We have to place at least more than 100 telescopes at various locations of the country, and we have to train our staff and depute them whenever there's a condition that the crescent can only be seen with the telescope. So we have to make strong our validation process. I think by making it strong, we will see very different results, because these atmospheric conditions vary so much with the over, we can say, 50 kilometers we have different, and another 50 kilometers we have a different atmospheric condition. So at height on the mountains we don't have observatories, enough observatories there. So we need to place some kind of small telescopes over there to mitigate the validation issue, or to reduce this uncertainty, or filter out this uncertainty. There is no uncertainty actually. It is the actually it is the validation process which needs so much enhancement actually in Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. Leghari, for your detailed explanation and remarks. So before we close, I want to ask both of you something rather more personal. That Hajj is almost upon us. Millions of Muslims are in preparation spiritually, physically, emotionally. And the day of Arafah, the day of Eid al-Azha, these are not abstract calendar questions. They carry the weight of worship and devotion. So what is your message to scholars, to governments, to space agencies, and to the ordinary Muslim looking at the sky about how we pursue certainty under the crescent?
And well, actually, I think it could be a different message for each entity you mentioned. For example, if I want to convey a message to the scientific and astronomy centers in the Muslim world, I would ask them to pay more attention for the crescent sighting process, because actually not all countries, they have scientific entity which is observing the crescent every month. So I'm sure that some Muslim countries, as a whole country, they didn't start the month with other Muslim countries simply because they don't have enough number of observers in their country. If there were real groups who were observing the crescent in different parts of the country, supported by us telescopes, binoculars, definitely they would have seen the crescent, and they would have started the month with others. Even for the Hijjah, though it's a good example because almost all Muslim countries have started the month today, but there are some exceptions, by the way. I don't want to mention the name of the countries, but there are very, 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 very few countries which didn't start the month today. Whether it's correct, it was correct because they really couldn't see the crescent, or there was a probability to see the crescent, but they didn't have enough observers to see that crescent. So this is my first message. There should be an organized groups equipped with simple, by the way, I'm not saying, no, I'm talking about very simple binoculars, a small telescope. If this is the case, I'm sure that they will not have problems in some months. Message number 2 for the scholars, the officials in general, they should be cooperation with the astronomers. The case is not the same in all the countries, by the way. In our Arab countries, the case was totally different 20 years ago. I was member of official committees at that time. So I remember officials, they didn't pay attention to us at all. But this is not the case now after 20 years. But after we have suffered a lot, by the way. But still, in other countries, this is the case. So this is a message for the officials that you cannot go alone. You have to work together with science, with astronomers, with astronomical centers, with the space agencies. You should work together. So this is very important because when you work together, you will reach the correct knowledge. You will no longer have such disagreements that we have been encountering for a very long time. Final message for the people in general. Actually, I believe that we have reached a time where we have to sit together as Muslim countries. We have to reach, let's say, an approximate agreement on how to start our month. It's unlogic that up to this time, we are totally ignoring the science. We are totally ignoring the calendar. We still insist on moon sighting in different approaches in different countries. It's not an issue of insisting on moon sighting alone. It's also the approach is different. The way is different. This country will accept this sighting from another country. That country will not accept. This country will accept only local sighting. That one worldwide sighting. This one will accept naked eye. That one will accept telescope. This one will accept claim of sighting with the moon is not in the sky. So this is very bad situation. We have to sit together. This is for the Muslim countries. We have to reach at least an approximate agreement. I don't want to reach a rigid, great agreement, unity 100%. At least let's start. But unfortunately, we didn't even start in a serious level. Dr. Leghari, he mentioned a great example. We have Turkey and Singapore. By the way, they are the only two countries in Muslim countries, though Singapore is not Muslim country, but they have official mufti, which is a governmental position. So in a way or another, we can consider it as a Muslim system at least. These are the only two countries which start the month based on the calendar. And their calendar, by the way, it's based on moon sighting. So this is a very important point. When we say that we want to start our months based on calendar, this does not mean we will ignore the moon sighting, because as we discussed before a while, if you you will go out and you will do moon sighting, you will see there's the real results in agreement with our predefined calendar. So isn't it the time that we start relying on a pre-calculated calendar, which is based on moon sighting? Shouldn't we start gathering, meeting, discussing? Until when we, the Muslim countries, and we, the Muslims, we do not tomorrow is Eid or not Eid? Till when I will stay up to 2 a.m. I don't know whether after 5 hours I have Eid prayer or I have Ramadan and I will be fasting after 5 hours. In some countries, this is not a problem. But in many, many countries, this is a serious, real problem, especially for Muslims in Europe and in non-Muslim countries. We have to reach this agreement. We have to work together. Unfortunately, we don't like to work together, but we have to work together. We have to find a country which will believe in this concern and it will start organizing, gathering the people to reach this agreement. At least we should try to start. The real sad fact is we didn't even try to start. So let's try to start. With all the science we know now, with all this unbelievable AI happening in the world, we are still relying on naked eye, crescent moon sighting, which we accept testimonies from persons with the moon is not in the sky. This is not Islam. The first word in Quran is Iqra. So it's unlogic that we, Ummat Iqra, we are doing this. Actually, we have to find a solution for this serious problem, which cannot be resolved except by countries who will gather the Muslims and will try to find a solution for this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Odeh, for the beautiful explanation and your message. Mr. Leghari, over to you.
Oh, what can I say? I think everything is has already been said by Dr. Odeh. I can only say that we need realization and cooperation and review of this issue. And I think we can reach to some optimal solution. And I don't see any contradiction between religion and science. And also the religion also, we know that it signifies the very existence of sun, moon, and the stars and the heavens above. So I think we need realization, cooperation, and review of moon sighting issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad Odeh and Mr. Ghulam Mustafa Leghari, for very interesting and thoughtful conversation. Dr. Odeh has reminded us today that the crescent, just thin silver of light, is not just a celestial event, and the tools of science, far from being foreign to our faith, are in many ways an extension of the Quranic call to observe, to reflect, and to know. Mr. Ghulam Mustafa Leghari, your presence today reminded us that this is not only a conversation for scholars and theologians, it is one that space scientists, institutions, and governments must be part of. So as we stand on the threshold of Hajj, the season of unity, of Arafah, of standing together before Allah, let this conversation be a reminder that we are one ummah under one moon, and with knowledge, sincerity, and cooperation, certainty is indeed within our reach. On behalf of Inter-Islamic Network on Space Sciences and Technology, I once again thank Dr. Shawkat Odeh and Mr. Ghulam Mustafa Leghari for their time, their insight, and their commitment to serving this ummah. To our listeners, we pray your Hajj preparations are blessed, your Zilhaj is filled with worship, and that this Eid, wherever you are in the world, you celebrate with certainty and with joy. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.